All right, welcome back, folks. We are now going to do our Let's Break Something New session with Christina Schwiebert from Northwest State Community College. Christina is the Instructional Design and Distance Learning Coordinator at Northwest State Community College in Archbald, Ohio. Beginning in the college's IT help desk in 2007, she quickly adopted responsibility for supporting online classes, then led the college's transition to Sakai in 2011. Within the Sakai community, Christina is a member of the Jira triage team and a dedicated QA tester. She's also provided input on a number of projects, including Sakai roadmaps, analytics, and rubrics, and Christina is a member of the Sakai PMC. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Christina.
Right. You able to see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So, welcome. Today, instead of talking to you as an instructional designer or a representative of Northwest State, I'm here as just one of the QA team talking about how we break things. So today, let's break something new. My outline, give you an introduction to the QA process, have a quick flashback to my presentation at the 2023 Sakai Virtual Conference, and then look at the challenges of doing QA with new features, both regression testing and the new feature Jira verification. So the role of QA, I found this tweet from 2018 that really describes the role of QA. Brennan Keller had tweeted, "A QA engineer walks into a bar, orders a beer, orders 0 beers, orders 99999 beers, orders a lizard, orders -1 beers, orders a string of random letters. The first real customer walks in and asks where the bathroom is. The bar bursts into flames, killing everyone." So what we learn is QA testing things is what keeps it from exploding later. So we need to make sure that we're testing every possible combination, because it's my faculty that are walking in and asking where the bathroom is when it bursts into flames and killing everyone. It's your faculty, it's the end users. And so we want to avoid that as much as possible. The other side of QA, I liked with this comic, the developer's sitting here going, how can I make it? How can I make this work? And the QA tester is sitting here going, how can I break this? How can I make it fail? How can I put in the wrong input, the wrong buttons, and have it fail on us? So the Sakai QA testing, we have kind of two flavors of it, two main testing types. We have the regression testing. So this is the tool-specific testing that we do for every major release, and sometimes a couple times in between them. So we follow some test scripts that we've made. There are just Google Sheets listing out the steps and the expected output. We go through those steps. We identify when something is wrong. We create JIRAs for those newly identified issues. We record every step of the Google Sheet when it's completed, what we are getting if it's not what's expected. We record the changes, and we create more new JIRAs as needed. The smaller scale testing is the JIRA verification. So that's testing fixes for specific bugs or new features. So we find the appropriate server to test on for what version of Sakai is affected, what one has the properties enabled that we need. We follow the test plans in there. We identify if things are fixed or not. If there's still any problem, we either reopen that JIRA or we create new ones. So in 2023, my presentation at the Sakai Virtual Conference was I break things. So day as a tester. So we actually did some live regression testing. We tested lessons as picked by the poll everywhere from the group. We actually did manage to find a bug about 4 steps in. So we went through then the process for creating a JIRA for that bug. And then at the end of my presentation, Dr. Chuck added an impromptu demonstration then of the developer side of it, the fixing of the bug and the putting in of a full pull request for it. So today, I want to break something new and go into the QA challenges with new features because Sakai 25 has so many wonderful new features. They created a lot of unique challenges for the QA team, both with JIRA verification and regression testing. When we're regression testing new features, the rule is we're having to identify when something is wrong, but wrong is just different than what's listed in that script as the expected output. So when do we know that that difference is actually a bug and not an improvement or a new feature? An example of that we had with the regression testing of 25 was with assignments. With the Sakai grader in 23, when the panel flew out from the side, there was a cancel button that would discard your changes. In Sakai 25, that became that panel started to autosave every time it was closed, every time it was collapsed, it autosaved. So there was no longer a cancel button. Well, our test script had a whole bunch of testing on enter this information, click cancel, make sure it's gone. So we had to identify, yes, that actually was a desired change and not a bug. And part of identifying if that is an expected change or a bug is if there was a JIRA that detailed it. So we'll do a search for JIRAs that match what we're seeing. Hope we can find it. And when it is an expected change or a desired change, then we're needing to update the script. Usually we're testing it actively as we're updating the script. We put a note in with any of the JIRAs referencing that change. We describe the new expected behavior. And as needed, we create more JIRAs. Sometimes the new features are big enough that we actually have to create new test scripts. This really requires a tester who is fairly familiar with the tool. When we're starting a script, we look at how big is this change? Does it require a completely new script? Does it get a new sheet in an existing script? Or just a new test case on an existing sheet? To give you an example of that scale, for Sakai 25, for the first time, dashboards got its own script. So there was a full Google Sheet for dashboards with one page for each of the widgets. There was the dashboard calendar, the dashboard grades widget, the dashboard cards widget as each sheet in there. And then the test cases on each sheet were add things, remove things, change things, view it as a student, view it as a TA. And as we're mapping out the scripts, we're mapping out the major components and the test cases that we want to make sure that we're covering. So we try to include all the variations, roles. Does it look right as a student, as an instructor, as a TA? What do the permissions change? Does it behave differently if there's existing data or if everything starts out blank? Does it behave differently if you do the steps in a different order? So we try to include as many of those variables as possible in the QA test scripts. When we're verifying new features or improvement JIRAs, First, let me slide back to my triage hat. What's the difference between a new feature JIRA and an improvement JIRA? There are two different types for them. New feature is a big change. It is, I want to do something that is not currently possible in Sakai. And an improvement is just smaller scale. We can do this, but I want it to be better. I want it to be more efficient. I want it to be smoother. But it's effectively just a little feature. Often the descriptions for those new features or improvements are vague. Just we want to be able to do this. Which then also means their test plan is fairly vague. Some of them are just go in here and see, can you do this? And a lot of the can you do this is going to depend on how the developer interprets the request and how they build it. So verifying new features, again, usually requires a QA tester who is familiar with the tool. It may require some property changes on the server to activate. And it is very helpful if somewhere in there, the requester or the dev adds notes, mockups, screenshots, anything to give the QA tester a little guidance as to how this is actually supposed to look. What is the ideal path through it? But this is just the introduction. The real heart of the presentation is let's go test something. So I'm breaking out of PowerPoint and coming back here into JIRA for one of the new features in Sakai 25, being able to associate conversations topics with a gradebook item. Wilma mentioned this in the Sakai 25 new features. This JIRA is not marked as verified, not because it hasn't been tested. Andrea and I have both tested it, but because in our testing, we've kept finding small problems. Sometimes it was errors when things were getting posted in the console or in the logs. Sometimes it was information not displaying quite right. So we were always creating new JIRAs that were related to this feature. And we can't say that this feature is truly verified until all of those related problems are dealt with, until this is working as smoothly as it should. So Andrea has been trying to verify this for a little while, but I asked her to let it go so I could use it today for a demonstration. We are going to verify how to associating the conversations topic with the gradebook item. So I've done a little setup. I've made some notes in a regression script template of just the basic testing steps or the basic cases that I want to test. So linking gradebook items to a topic that already has some posts, making sure that that links everything properly, creating a new topic and linking a gradebook item, creating a new topic and creating the gradebook items from there, making sure it works with anonymous topics, making sure it works with grading any of them, and making sure everything appears in the gradebook the way it's expected to. So to make it faster for testing, I'm actually doing simultaneous testing in Trunk, which is going to be eventually Sakai 26 and Sakai 25. So I've created a little bit to get started. I've got a site. I've got conversations with some existing an existing question and post from and some posts from my students. And I've got just a couple existing gradebook items. Right now, none of them are linked yet. For testing, we always have the browser console open and the server logs open. Miles, they are available just to members of the Google group, but if you send an email to the QA list, we are more than happy to share them. So we got trunk and 25. So the first test is making sure we can link to something that is already in existence. So if we edit the topic, grade this topic, associate it with an existing gradebook item. And this is going to be question 1. It does pull the points from the gradebook. Now if we go in here and check on it, now they all have the grade link next to their name. So we'll give points in a comment, and this one will only give points. And this one will just give a comment. Let's make sure it's not different with the discussion topics rather than the question topics. Grade, associate. This one's C1, and it is pulling the points from the grade book. When we reload the page, grade link does appear. I check gradebook. Everything has flown over. There's the comments for the student who only got comments only. So let's try new topic and having it create its own gradebook item. Grade this topic. This time we have to specify the points here. Create a new gradebook item. Discussion. We often try to mix up the amount of points that each one's worth to make sure that everything is flowing over correctly, that it's not going to skew things differently if it's worth 10 points or 87 points. Check in gradebook. There is conversation 3 and question 3. They come over initially as unpublished and hidden. But it doesn't show that. Should it be doing that one? Well, let's see if those icons are telling the truth. It says not visible to students. Let's see what the student sees. Nope, they're not visible. See if they appear after they are graded. Minimize student. Score is in there. Let's check student again. That one still does not appear. So now let's check back on the other issues that we found with conversations. See if that is something. Grades not passed if the gradebook item was created through conversations. That's not the same problem, since this time the grades are passing through, it's just not being visible to students. Yeah, unfortunately, with the QA group, I have a reputation, and that is I can break anything. And I do believe we are not going to be able to verify this one today because we're going to have to link a new JIRA to it. So when we create a new JIRA, always try to provide as much information as possible. The priority major is for most issues. Blocker is for the big issues. Since this is impacting grading, I'm going to make it nope, Andrea, they're not when I go to edit item details, those boxes are. Did I seriously just miss that? Okay. My brain was not functioning. I'm sorry about that. I saw unchecked and thought that was correct rather than checked. Uh, Proof that any of us can get a little brain dead. So thank you, Andrea, for making me stop and think a little better there. And now they come through properly. All right. Yes, Earl, for once you guys didn't have a break. All right, so that one just is a little strange, not a bug. That is still everything good there. So if we grade our test student here, oh, those errors are not from Sakai, they're from my plugin. So not real problems. Just always scroll through the logs and make sure things are good here too. Only error I'm spotting is it can't send an email to someone who doesn't have an email address. Mhm. These are all unrelated. So the last thing I want to make sure it tests properly is anonymous posts.
Just a quick time check. We're at 1:44. So
I will test very fast. Because we are used to bouncing between windows very quickly when we're doing testing. Oh, nope, I had the wrong setting. Anonymous posts is what I wanted. Error when creating topic. Earl. I do
looks
believe now
like you
I got
broke something.
I broke this time I actually did manage to break it. So all right, I was hoping to be able to verify this before 1:45, but those console errors, they look like they hopefully should only be a limited scope problem. but it just means we're going to have to do a little more testing before we officially mark that as verified and done. I was hoping I wouldn't have broken it this time.
Well, it was in the title of the presentation, so it's appropriate that you broke at least something there at the end. Um, but thank you, Christina, for taking us through that. As you can see, it's a very iterative process, and we're always finding new things and edge cases. And Christina is good at sniffing out those little quirks that make it blow up. So we're thankful to have her and the rest of the QA team to put Sakai through its paces to make sure that we get these things corrected before it gets out to most users. So thank you, Christina, very much for your demonstration and presentation. And we have about, let's see, 8 minutes, I think, until our next session. So if you want to grab a quick cup of coffee or run to the restroom or whatever, our next session starts at 1:55. We're going to be doing There and Back Again, a reflective quest for faculty development from some of our awesome folks at Loyola University. So I will see you at 1:55.